Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to begin the funeral service of Valentin Kotlyar. Rabbi Levi Notik from Free will be officiating. For those of you who are here, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. We welcome those of you who are joining us via live stream. This time, the rabbi is going to begin the sacred funeral ceremony.
מזמר לדוד, אדינוי רואי לא יחסור, בנס דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחס ינהלני, נפשי ישבי וינחני, ומגלי צדק למען שמוי. גם כי ילך בגיא צלמו וסליררה, כי אתה עמדי. שבתך ומשענתך עמו ינחמוני. תאריך לפני שולחן נגד צוררוי, לישנת ושמן ראשי כויסי רוויו, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני ליארך ימים. Friends, relatives, we're gathered here this afternoon to give tribute, to show honor, and accord respect to an individual who truly deserves the greatest honors. Mr. Valentin Kotlyar, of blessed memory, or in Hebrew, Velvel ben Aaron HaKoyin, Olav HaShalom. An incredibly devoted, dedicated, loving husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and friend to many. Upon learning more about this amazing individual, who I had the fortune some years ago to actually meet, you see a character that is really described as a mensch in the fullest sense of the word, a mensch in his way that he related to others, to strangers, to family, and to his own responsibilities. Born in Odessa in 1933 to a family of Kohanim, which means priests. His grandfather was a deeply religious man, priest in the Jewish sense in the temple. He had his own place in the shul. He was very affluent, patriarch of a large family. But then at the young age of 8, such an impressionable, fragile, sensitive age, and life changes. The world in general, and for Jewish people in particular, with the onset of World War II. And he had to flee, an 8-year-old child together with his family. They have to run from Odessa to evacuation. Far in the Ural Mountains, amidst low-flying planes that are shooting, bombing, specifically aiming at their targets. And it's at this moment that you see part of his special character when his grandfather, who himself was tortured by the Bolsheviks some years earlier, tells him, you just go, I can't go that fast. We have to constantly flee from the shooting, go into the side roads, bushes, whatever else it may be for safety. You just go. And he wouldn't. He stayed by his grandfather's side, and eventually they all made it safely to Ural. But when they got there, it wasn't an easy life. He got to work as an 9-year-old, helping his grandmother, who was starting a garden to feed her family and others. And he would get up very, very early in the morning and do hard physical labor, really dedicated to his grandmother to help her. And if he wasn't working very hard, he was unfortunately experiencing real anti-Semitism from locals, people outside, kids his age, making fun of him, taunting him, even beating him. And for these 5 years or so of evacuation until he comes back to Odessa, it was not easy. And really, these occurrences do something to a person. But instead of him getting hard, insensitive, and God forbid, unkind, on the contrary, it molded him as a person. He was strong. He was like a warrior who would stand up to every responsibility that comes his way at every stage in his life and do it the best way possible. He goes on to finish his education. He continues with a higher education and graduates as a mechanical engineer, doing very well and taking care of his family. First and foremost to him was his family. He was there for others in need, friends. It's evident from how many people are reaching out from around the world of how much of an impact he had on people's lives just as a friend, crossing countries, even continents, just to care for someone else. It's his kindness and his sensitivity and care for others. When he immigrated in 1988 to ensure a better life for his daughter and his grandchildren, God willing, and future generations to come, people told him, well, enough with the hard work. There's government subsidies, there's things available. You could stop working. And it would make sense at his age. No one would say anything wrong with that. However, he said, no, it's my family, I'm going to work. And he went to work. And he went to find some type of job, and if it didn't work out, he found another job. And eventually, starting from the bottom, at an age of almost 60 years old, he climbed up the ladder at the company and really made a difference, working almost to the age of 80, really only stopping because he had to take care of his wife. May she live and be well. That's the kind of person that Valentin was. That's the type of life that he lived. Being there for what the call of the hour is, as difficult as it may have been. He took tremendous pride in his family, and when his daughter and grandchildren and so on were becoming more involved in Jewish life, it could be hard for somebody who is not used to that for many, many years or growing up in certain cultures. But not only was he not discouraging, he was encouraging. He was proud of it. And if he was offered to do a mitzvah to put on tefillin or be involved, whether it's a holiday or something else, he was happy to be involved. It was important to him. He cherished our tradition, our heritage, where we come from in our Torah. He also was a great singer and very, very knowledgeable and well-read, and a great person to be around and to interact with. We're in a time now on the calendar between Gimel Tammuz, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Yortzeit, and Yud Beis Tammuz, which is the day of liberation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. In Russia, he was, in 1927, he was arrested and sentenced to death, and then they commuted it to 10 years of hard labor and then exile, and eventually he was freed miraculously and banished from the country. However, his life mission was to ensure Jewish continuity. And that's really why, at that time in the former Soviet Union, they persecuted him and tried to kill him. He wanted to keep Judaism alive. And when I see the time, the date of when Valentin returned his neshama, his maker, to his maker, you can't help but realize this is the torch that continued that work. Look at the family that he's leaving, of committed to Torah values, to Yiddishkeit, wonderful personalities in their own right that carry that kindness, that sensitivity, that care for others, that good friendship, seeing how someone else could be helped, going out of their way, and at the same time being strong and not letting a curveball or something that's, thank God, nowhere near what he experienced, but not letting those things get in the way and really being strong and continuing with what has to be done for who we are as a people and as individuals. We know the pasuk says, "V'hachai yitin el libay," the living shall take to heart. What that means is that although tragically we're saying goodbye to the physical part of Velvel ben Aaron HaKohen. But there's a part, a neshama, a soul, a spirit that never goes away. We're not saying goodbye to that. That continues. It endures. It lives on forever. And specifically in the acts and the mitzvahs and the kindness and the behavior of his descendants, and really all those who knew him and were impacted by him. So it's really important for us to try to emulate those characteristics, to try to encourage ourselves to behave in this type of manner, of kindness, of caring, of strength, of family, of really what it means to be a mensch, to be a true yid, strong, devoted, and committed. Before we continue with some of the additional prayers, we're going to hear from some family members in memory of Valentin Kotlyar. If you stand by the microphone, they can hear you on this live stream.
Where is the screen?
They're not watching it.
Oh, okay.
Someone's watching it.
So, thank you so much for everyone, such a close friends and family who came today. And Levi, thank you so much for giving such a great speech about my father, which is obviously all true. So what you were talking about Yiddishkeit and Judaism. So my father knew a lot, but he was very broad, intelligent man. But when I was talking to him about Torah, that let's study the Torah, he would tell me, oh, I already read the whole book 3 times. And I said, okay, but you need to study with the rabbi and learn more to understand it. It never happened. But he said, what do you want from me? I am already live by Torah. And then I thought about it and I thought, okay, that's true. Because what is the main purpose of a human, of a man, mensch, real man? To build a family, to support your family, to have, that's exactly what he did. And my mom was with him from childhood. They were playing football together after they came back from the evacuation. And they, Boris, thank you, because I'm very nervous and I'm glad to have you here. So, and they were together from the childhood, from playing together, for getting married in very young age, and it would be 70 years in February in 6 months, it would be 70 years of them being married. So you can, yeah. So, and I had a pleasure, or not pleasure, but it's everything, to have father for 68 years almost, have father like my father, who was real mensch, who did everything. He gave all of it to his wife, and through her, obviously, to me. And then when I got my own family, and I was not dependent on him anymore, but he would always ask. He would see a need for each and every his grandchildren, and he would come and give, no matter how, but he would do it. And he didn't wait for someone to ask. So that's what I said. I already live by Torah. I don't know anyone else. I have my wife, my queen, and you, and grandkids, and then great-grandkids. It was amazing, how they would come over and they will bring whatever they could, berries, and those great-grandkids would stay around and they would give it to them. So everything what is needed for my kids. Like even my youngest one, he would get sick. For 1 week, he would go to my parents to stay with them so we can work. So what can I tell you? That's really, and I hear so much about his, not just the family, but I hear so much, even here when he started working, he was helping a lot of people. And they keep calling me and telling me to place them to work in that company. So he started in a small company and then it became General Electric. So he finished working for General Electric. He said, I would never dream to be working for that company. So all people, especially Russian people from Russia, he would help them. So many friends all around the world, younger than him. And now when he, after like a couple of years ago, he could not give anymore. He could not give, he was able to give spiritual. And he was telling me, I am burden for you. He didn't want to accept whatever he was given. He didn't want people to be burdened. And he was telling me all the time, I am your burden. Kill me. I mean, I couldn't even hear that. It was so hard, but I was telling him that, no, you're not a burden. You are a great example for all of us, for our family. So he had to accept help for last couple of years. There was no way out. And he was really suffering for last 8 months. So, and I was so scared when I got phone call yesterday morning that he unfortunately not making it. But when I came, I opened him and I was hugging him and talking to him, and he couldn't talk to me anymore. So it was such a moment, and I was so calm, I could not believe it, that I would be like looking at him, and he was just, and I was thinking, thank God that he finished his suffering, because it was very hard to see how he was suffering because of the disease. So that's why what I want to say, I want to really say thank you to my husband, because I spent a lot of time with my parents, but my house does not suffer. He does everything that is needed when I am not around. Supports me, because I would obviously never be able to help them as I do. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for grandsons who help, great-grandsons, relatives, and friends. And I know that his brother, Leo, is watching, his younger brother, Leo, with his wife, Lida, is watching. Thank you so much. His one more, Dmitry, the grandson, he is watching because he is very far. They both on West Coast, and he could not leave his family. So maybe some friends joined. Thank you so much for that. It really means a lot, and I appreciate everything. Sorry, maybe for such a long speech, but thank you for listening. Thank you.
It would not be a long speech. I just want you to know whatever my wife just said, it was not just for her. She was talking on my behalf. And I want you to know that even though she said that he didn't suffer, he did suffer. He suffered so greatly that nobody who saw it could believe it. Last 5-7 years was given him for nothing. It was given him by Hashem and my wife. Steadily, unselfishly, she was helping him, he was taking care of him, and she's still taking care of her mother now. It's like it should be on the daughter's side, but whatever she did has no tantamount in my mind. I believe it was great. I don't see it in any other people, in my family at least. I believe he deserved a daughter like him, like my wife. That's all what I want to know.
Thank you so much for
Yesterday morning, Velvel Hakoyim ben Aaron, he returned his soul to Hashem. Our grandma, she knew him as Valunia. My mother as Papa or Papachka, and myself, Dima and Elliot, as Diadushka. He was a loving and dedicated husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather. As Rabbi Notik said, he was born in Odessa in 1933 to parents Aaron and Sophia. As a child growing up, the first 8 years of his life were that of a normal childhood. But that all changed when the war broke out in 1941 in June. His family, specifically his mother, little brother, and his mother's parents, escaped by fleeing east and settling in the Ura Mountains region. On the way there, the Nazis would bomb the trains they were on, and they had to run and hide. One of the things that Yadushka told me, and how he remembers what his Jewish name was, is when the bombs fell, instead of running to hide, he was always stay by his grandfather's side. And his grandfather would yell to him, "Velvele, velvele." He would say, "Velvele, velvele, run." So in Ural, he had to grow up very quick. As you heard before, many boys in the school would harass him and beat him up, only because he was a Jew. But instead of falling into despair, he began to exercise, using irons for weights and conditioning himself by rubbing snow on his body when temperatures outside would reach minus 30 degrees. I would never have believed this story, but when I was 5 years old, he took me to the beach. It was either November or December. He threw his coat over me and went in for a swim. After the war, his family returned to Odessa, and life was difficult, with anti-Semitism being in the forefront. The ones that did express their anti-Semitic views and behavior to Diadushka later definitely regretted it. In 1948, he met the love of his life, our grandmother. And since then, he never left her side. My grandparents would have celebrated, as you heard from my mom, their 70th wedding anniversary this February. They were blessed with a beautiful child, our mother, and the love and care that Diadushka poured into her knew no bounds. As she said, she was his princess and Babushka was his queen. He was a true family man in every sense of the word, and they always came first. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with him, with Yanushka. He taught me many valuable lessons, but very importantly, he taught him to be not by talking, but by doing. Be strong and proud of who you are. Family always comes first. Be kind and sensitive to the needs of others. Choose a positive path in life. Stay focused, and don't let anything or anyone deter you from it. When I began to learn about our beautiful heritage, these lessons became the foundation for my journey in personal growth in leading a Jewish life. Diadushka loved physics, and we always had discussions on how the universe works. In his later years, we had long and interesting discussions on the why questions about the universe and the reason for everything. Diadushka was a Kohen, it means priest, which means that his paternal line goes all the way back to Aaron, the first Kohen, who was Moshe Rabbeinu's, Moses' brother. The main character trait in a Kohen is love and kindness towards a fellow Jew. The Kohanim give a special blessing to the congregation on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Yom Tovim, the holidays. They make a special blessing before blessing the congregation, which reads as follows. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvaysav v'tzavanu levarech ez amo Yisrael bi'ahava. And translated is as blessed are you Hashem, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with the sanctity of Aaron and commanded us to bless his people Israel with love. The Yalishka always projected this love and kindness towards his family, friends, co-workers, and many others. He embodied the qualities of a true Kohen. The Yalishka will live forever in our minds, in our hearts, but most importantly in our actions. I encourage everyone, including myself, to take on one mitzvah to keep his memory alive and connect to his soul, which is eternal. His memory should be for a blessing.
The next prayer beseeches God on high to accept the neshama, the soul of Velvo ben Aaron HaKohen, and grant him eternal peace, basking in the glow of the light of the Shekhinah in God's holy presence. I ask everyone to please rise for the Kelim Olei Rachamim. Elam Olei Rachamim Shoichein B'Meroimim Hamitzei Menuchanecha B'Beino Al Kanfei HaShechino B'Malois Kedoshim U'Tehorim Kezoyar Orokia Mazirim Es nishmas Velvu ben Aaron HaKohen Sheholach le'olamoi Ba'avor she'anachnu mispalim bad azkoras nishmosoi B'gane yedeh netehei menuchosoi Lochein ba'al rachamim yashtireyu b'seiser knafav le'olamim V'yitzroi b'yitzroi rachayim es nishmasoi Adonai unachalosoi V'yanuach b'sholem al mishkavoi v'neimar Amen. You may be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at Memorial Park Cemetery, located at 9900 Grosse Point Road, here in Skokie. The family will be together at the residence in Buffalo Grove immediately upon the burial, on return from the cemetery, and until 9 p.m. Memorial contributions to free would be appreciated. That information is on the service folder. For those of you who are joining us online, all that information can be found on the funeral home's website. For those of you who will be driving in the procession to the cemetery, we're just going to form in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a flag on the cars. Please use your horn liberally, and please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to the cemetery. This time I invite everyone to please rise as we escort his casket, his family, and the rabbi from the chapel. Then you may return to your cars.